there. This is Jim the Keys bartender. Rarely do we get it off at the top of the hour. I'm here with Papa Joe. Hi, Papa Joe.
Hey, how you doing?
Are you there? Wait, it's your
Yes, I'm here.
volumes.
Can you hear me now?
Now I hear you.
Ah, very good. I'm
Yeah,
here.
good. Yeah, I played the music and all that stuff. It is. Uh, we're in mid-September. We're right past the peak of the hurricane season. Right.
Yes, we
Right
are.
past the very peak. We're
It's been
still
busy.
in the peak, but we're past it. We're on the downward slope.
I hope so.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, right now there's like seven. There's seven. There's seven. Ignore. Oh man, my phone. I don't know how to use this. Good. I had my phone ringing. It was coming up spam. I should just turn this off. I think some people
That's
call.
somebody wanting your money.
No, but I think when we start the show, they start calling my phone number instead of calling the. I've had some guy want to get on the show, and I keep on telling him, you got to call the Skype number. He goes, well, I'm calling your number. And I go, no, you're not calling my number. You're calling the Skype
Hey,
number.
Jim, what is the Skype number since we're
Oh, it's
doing that?
407 392 4563. That's 407 392 4563. There won't be any screenings when you call. If you do call in, you're right on the air. Which I'm open myself to abuse and all that stuff. If luckily there's not that many people listening live, and I don't think, I don't think wait until 7 o'clock really makes it, you know.
Hey, but you know what? We're open for abuse too, so bring it on.
Well, yeah. I don't think. Rarely people say, "Well, I'm going to listen to this live show because I would really want to get pissed off by somebody who doesn't support our dear leader." But yeah, that phone number is 407 392 4563, or you can go to the Spreaker app and you can chat with us like Elron. Is it Elron or D-Ron? D-Ron. D-Ron from Canada. He always jumps on the chat. But we were talking about being in the hurricane season, right?
Yes, sir.
And yeah, it was raining for like 2 days here. We had they said there was 12 inches of rain in Alvarado, 10 inches of rain, something crazy. And right now,
When you say it rained here for 2 days, we're talking a biblical 2 days of nonstop rain.
yeah, it was a lot of rain.
Yeah.
It was. They said there was like 12 inches of rain. That is a lot of rain. That's seasonal rain for a lot of places, right? We got it in 2 days. But that's the
Right.
thing about we're normally we're not. That's why we don't have the tropical climate. It'll be dry for months, and then it'll rain. That monsoon season comes in for us, and we get tons of rain. It's an incredible amount of rain. But luckily, that being on, if you're at the high point if you're at the high point or near a high point of an island, right? You're not experiencing the worst of it. If you're at a low point, a swell, let's call it, you're getting it pretty bad, because that all that water's running out to the, the
Oh
bay
yeah.
and the
Plus,
ocean.
you got to remember, Jim. The wind kicked up from the east, which is always the worst for the chain of islands, and the high tide was exaggerated to be a very, very high tide. Plus the rain, so there were neighborhoods that were flooded. Key West was flooded. It was
Yeah, Smoky
up
Joe's. I
almost
seen it was like
almost
a couple
the
feet
knees.
of water on Duval Street.
Right. I mean, it was up to people's knees, and people were on their jet skis in the middle of the city. So
Yeah.
that tends to be protocol during this particular season. It happens. You just got to get used to it. And it's only going to get worse, I think.
I know. We were at a gathering last night. A friend of ours is going to Thailand for 10 months to teach, and she's taking her family. And we were talking to. We were saying it was kind of a farewell party, and the there was a couple real estate agents there, and we were talking to people, and it's, oh, well, now wouldn't be a really good time to look because it's the rainy season's the worst time to be looking. The realtors don't want you looking at their properties.
Yeah, this would not be a good time.
Yeah, they'll take you to a section and say, hey, how come why is their rugs all torn up? Why is all the furniture in the front of the house?
And it's not like you can buy insurance during the hurricane season. Usually insurance companies withhold new policies during hurricane season.
Well, you can buy it, but it's an exclusion period. You have to, right?
Yeah, so most people, when they buy a house, they want insurance now. I would, right? You want to buy it and be covered at the same time?
Oh,
so
yeah.
Normally you buy the house after the hurricane season. That's usually when real estate deals start to pick up again. And it's not as gloomy, and you don't have any threatening hurricanes.
I know. People have such short memories with that stuff. But, like, what was it, 2 years ago was Michael in Panama City and Mexico Beach up in the Panhandle. And this one's hitting near there right now. And there's still, it's like 7 or 8 of them out there. Who knows? I just pick an arbitrary number, and it's going to happen. So that's I had visitors come in. They were what were they here? Friday night. This is traditional slope here, we said, for vacationers in the Keys, right? You notice that after school starts and after Labor Day, and
oh yeah.
Even with all this, the quarantine for 2 weeks for people who are traveling, but there's a certain amount of people that are out there doing their normal shit, traveling and stuff like that. There's people that haven't been out, and now it's all settling in. Those people have been out. Those people who really, weren't worried about it, and I'm not saying they should have been, because we'll talk about that later maybe, but they have been out and about, and so we're hitting that slow period right now, and luckily, there was a young couple came in, and they were going to the Dry Tortugas, which is kind of funny because it's not funny. You shouldn't say that. But luckily, I didn't tell them about the podcast, so they're not going to hear about it. Rare would they hear about it. So they were in their mid-20s, and they were staying here, and it was Friday night, and they said Sunday they were going to be heading to the Dry Tortugas. And I said, all this weather will be past us by then. Well, little did I know how big the system was. Right? And that it's pretty much only 80 miles north of us right now. The bands are still 80 miles north and to the west of us. And today's Tuesday. And I said by Sunday that'll be gone. Well, Sunday it was going heavy, right?
Right.
It was crazy. Sunday was crazy, and during the daytime, Saturday was the worst. And then we had all the rain. But that's the peril of living in the Keys, right? Any tropical place. There's going to be a lot of rain. There's going to be a lot of tropical cyclonic activity. And that's what we expect. And you hear that a lot by us. And there was somebody made a joke. They said, well, I got to put up my shutters. I said, you're kidding, right? He goes, yeah, of course I'm kidding. Because it wasn't going to be direct for us. And we had, 40 mile per hour wind gusts or something like that, 50?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most I did, I took the flag off the flagpole. Yeah.
I think a tree came down in our neighborhood. What?
It takes a lot to jar Monroe County residents into leaving or putting in a panic. Unlike some people in this country who think people who panic and prepare for the worst should never happen. Because people in Dade County and Monroe County, we go through this so many times, you get used to it. You know what to prepare for. You kind of start to understand it, and you don't freak out.
Do you think some people get kind of pissed off to people that have, they built their Cat 5 houses, They raised their property. They got all the, their doomsday preppers, right? They got their generators and stuff like that, and they just got it. It's just like getting a new, any new piece of equipment. If it's a guitar, you want to play it. If it's a gun, you want to shoot it. If it's a rod, you want to think, right? So you get all this shit. You're all
I
got
guess
the impact windows and all this stuff. And say, fuck, I am never going to leave again. I'm just going to stick it out because I got all this stuff. And what happens is, some years, like Irma was our big one 3 years ago. And we're still kind of in the middle of it. So who knows what'll happen? There could be something out there right now that could come and get us, and we could be in trouble. Usually in about 2 or 3 weeks, about 4 weeks, we can start breathing easier. When things start cooling down a bit, and just the level of activity kind of cools off the oceans. I still haven't heard that. I've been trying to, every time I talk to someone who has some science, geography background or some earth sciences, I try to ask them, I try to get this information from people, but luckily most of the people won't give information unless they know absolutely sure. But you know how sometimes there's people that believe in a lot of crazy ideas, the flat earthers and all that stuff, not based on science, obviously, not based on science, because science is a bad thing to them. But
right.
I always, this is the thing that makes, I thought the more activity going on, the more depressions going across, and how tightly packed they are going across, and the winds and the rain and the waves and all that stuff, that is kind of cooling the oceans.
You would think so, wouldn't you, Jim? Except what happens, because I did read an article, what happens when the deep current water temperature is in the 80s and the top level is in the 90s? How much is it really going to cool? That normal circulation of Arctic water coming underneath, cooling, and resurfacing and cooling as it goes south in the Atlantic. What if they say that's all disrupted?
Yeah.
What if the temperature of the water going really deep is still really hot? How much cooling effect do these storms now have? It may not have the type of cooling effect that would matter.
That's what I expect. Okay, see, you have a science background and stuff. That's what I would expect to hear from someone who was like working for NOAA or something like that.
Right. I mean, those would be the.
Because they were here before I spoke to them. They were used to talk. They said that the differences also occurred because of the change in the salinity of the Gulf Stream. Right.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, the salinity it causes water to rise and fall and things like that. But yeah. I mean, but if it drops it a couple more degrees, I don't think the water actually get up to 90 degrees.
In some parts, what was it? I'll go back 2 months ago. We were out on the boat. And we were over there by Stretch Beach, which is a beach that runs along US 1 as you enter the Keys. And the water was miserably bathtub-like warm. It was disgusting. And then a couple of weeks after, of course, we're in a completely different area of the bay. The water wasn't that bad, but it had rained the few days before. So maybe that answers the question. In more shallower waters, I don't know what goes on, out in the ocean in deep waters. I only know what I read and kind of made sense. But if there was an oceanographer, that I knew, that would be like the question I would ask.
You know what? I have one. I had one. I did an interview, and I should give her a call. Her name escapes me. I did an episode. She's a lawyer. She's a maritime lawyer, and she was an advocate for whales and higher order oceanic mammals, right? So,
Right.
which I wonder if that includes what is an octopus a mammal? No, it isn't. No, it isn't because
No.
no.
So is that not a cephalopod?
Yeah, cephalopod.
Or-
You're right. It is a cephalopod. I thought that was like underneath that. Like I don't know. See, the older I get, the further I get away from my class.
Well, you're talking. I know you're talking
because
about
orcas are actually the largest dolphins. The killer
correct.
whale.
Well, you're talking mammals. You're talking vertebrate.
Okay, well,
mammals.
I mean, but because I said higher order mammals, and then I
Right,
realized,
right.
I said, wait a second, octopuses are very higher order thinking too. So I didn't want to get. I guess that
Right,
was kind of
right.
chauvinism when it comes to being a mammal.
Yeah, that's
like there can't be anything more intelligent than a mammal, right?
That's being culturally insensitive to the octopi of the world.
Well, I would say, well, not culturally. Yeah, I mean, they don't. Do they have a? Oh, okay. See, now
I don't know.
probably doing
What would
do
you
they,
call it?
Do they have a culture?
Are you?
Do they? Is
are
there
you
is there really an octopus culture out there? Who knows, right?
I don't know. That would be interesting. They all kind of like suck onto you, and we do
Yeah.
call them. I don't know. Maybe you're an octopi racist.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, I mean that would be no, that would be a species, a species, a species.
A speciesist.
Yes.
That's all too much for me to think about.
Species because they're not a member of our, right? That's it. Okay,
Right.
well, we could go down this rabbit hole, and it's very. You know what? We should save it for
Yeah.
another. We should save it for another one because we could probably do another good half hour on it.
Yes, we could. We should leave this immediately.
But it
Let's
doesn't
do
really
this some
matter.
other
I don't know
time.
your schedule for today because I said I'm thinking I'll go an hour and a half if you want to on this. But I wanted to get to whenever you travel a lot out of the Keys, Joe, right?
I
for
do.
Your job.
Yes.
Do you and Damon go regularly up to the mainland if you need something that isn't available that you normally would? Like, there's things you don't order online, right? Because you're pretty savvy. You'll order stuff online, right?
Oh, anything to keep from going to the mainland, I'll do it online. But there's those things that, if you need a washer, a dryer, if you need a lawnmower, a barbecue, sometimes it's just a lot quicker to run up, buy it on the mainland and bring it back.
Oh, well, yeah, if you need one of those and stuff like that. I definitely a washer,
Right.
dryer, and stuff like that, I'll order online. The one Abby and I, it's funny, if you're not moving, like I've never bought a brand new couch. I'm 57 years old. I've never bought a brand new couch.
You always bought used ones?
I had them, or someone was, it was a perfectly good one. People said they were remodeling their house and they had one. Do you want it? And all this stuff.
Right.
And
right,
I never went
right.
out. And first of all, I was single most of my life, right?
Right.
And then when I moved down here, I'm moving into rental properties most of the time. So, and they were furnished, some of them. So I never really purchased. Did I ever purchase? I never purchased a new sofa. Now, I purchased other things. Many other things, big purchase items. But that was one of them. And I realized that was, when I was thinking about it, you can order one online. You can. That's no problem. But that's one of the things I have to try out. And it's so big that, I mean, you have to check for fit. Abby and I are both over 6 foot, right?
Right.
And we want to, the sofas from the 50s and 60s, and they come about because back then TV was, you'd watch, there was only good TV around for like 2 hours, and we're going to get into TV later on, right? But now the living room is your home entertainment center. Right?
Oh, yeah, everything goes on there. Sure.
Yeah, and the easy chair came about in the late 60s, I think. Right? The recliner?
Probably, yeah. Yeah, the recliner, the Castro convertible. The whole
Yeah.
that
So
whole
once you
lazy
had that,
boy.
yeah, and when people spend a considerable amount of time in there, and there's other things they do. It's entertainment. They can talk to people and things like that. But it, over the last 40, 50 years, um, sofas have developed. They got bigger, plusher. I mean, you can see, in the real well-to-do, you don't see. They have their rec rooms, right? People with multiple
Yeah,
rooms. Yeah, my grandmother, when I was growing up, we had a living room, where it was almost like a showcase. No one ever went in the living room.
yeah. Listen, I think every family back in that era, the living room was not to be lived in. I mean, that was
entertaining. It was for entertaining.
For quote unquote, it was for company.
There was no TV in the living room.
No. You put that in another room. You didn't want people in your living room unless
we had. And then people say, "Well, that's your living room." Then I say, "Yeah, we're living in that room, but the other one's kind of like a display living room." I mean, my grandmother didn't have. She didn't believe in the plat. We were from Philadelphia, and she lived in Philadelphia from the 30s into the early 2000s. I mean, she passed away in 2002, 2003, but she was a good 70 years in Philadelphia. She never put that vinyl covering that you'd see in a lot of houses.
Right.
That plastic covering over the furniture. You go in a house and I'm like, holy shit. I mean, it didn't even look good. I didn't. No,
I mean, and if anyone sat on it, it made that horrible noise. That
and if
rubbing
you had bare
noise,
skin, if you had bare skin, like down here, it's funny. You'd really need it down here. But I guess up there, if you're working class and stuff like that, people coming home, sometimes they're filthy and stuff like that, and you gotta cover it up. Otherwise, you're gonna have you spend all this money on this furniture, and then people are gonna destroy it, right?
Yeah. Well, listen, my grandmother had an answer for that. She would knit these knitted blankets, and then they were very pretty, and she would just drape them over the furniture, and that was we never had the plastic on the furniture. But I will tell you this. Where I grew up in Miami during the 60s and early 70s, everyone, it seemed, everyone, it didn't matter where they came from or what their cultural background is, everyone had vinyl encased, vacuum sealed couches and chairs. And you could walk through the living room, but God forbid if you sat on the couch, usually the mom would come out, scold you, and tell you, go out and play or go in the other room. It was for, quote, that's for company. I don't know how many times I heard that. Don't sit there. That's for company. Well, aren't I company? No, you're the wrong company.
Yeah, the Keys are kind of like the antithesis to that. You don't see it as much in the Keys, though I'm sure there's a lot of places in the Keys like that. I just don't happen to be friends with a lot of people like that don't, use their house to live in it, right? It's more of a display
I don't think
model.
there's
display model.
There's not that many.
Not
that many.
Yeah.
There's not that many uptight fuckers in the Keys that you would. Everyone I grew up with was uptight. Everyone, every mother and father was one. It's like kids were the nemesis, and you had to ask yourself, well, why the hell did you have them? It's like, wow, all these damn kids, get out of the house, go play in the street. You go play in the street. We didn't care if you got hit by a car. Just don't be in the house and spoil up the couch.
Well, the my grandmother's house was, at any time you walk in there, you could pretty much show that she said at a moment's notice she didn't want to be embarrassed by showing the house, and it had to be immaculate, right? But
right.
So what I'm getting at is, like, we were looking for a sofa, and we're looking for a comfortable one and stuff. My head wasn't even. I'm looking at a sofa. My head's so far behind. I didn't realize that most of the big comfortable ones now are recliners now, reclining sofas.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know. And there was another thing I just noticed that happened in the last 6 years. and you're gonna guess.
Electric recliners.
What the fuck? I knew they existed. I knew they existed. I didn't realize that it became a thing that people needed. That's the one thing they needed to electrify. You know, I knew there was the technology was around since the 70s. There's no reason why they couldn't have done it in the 70s or 60s or the 50s even. Right, an electric motor to move something and stuff like that. But whether it is needed, I didn't know. Right.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, because why plug something in if you really don't need to plug something in?
Yeah. So did you buy one?
Well, I'm going to get to that point, right? So I'm thinking we're going up to the next couple weeks. The catch closed on Mondays, the whole Monday, right? Works out good because in about 2 weeks from today, I got the operation that I've been waiting to get, and so it's going to be closed until a week after my when I can go back to work, right?
Okay.
So, or a little more than a week because actually I can't go to work that next Monday. So we're going up there, and in my head, my perception, which you can't buy a couch online. I mean, even me. I mean, I'm after thinking about it, pondering it. I see couches and stuff. Unless I sit in it, I can't buy it and order it online just because it's a good deal. You know, it says $800, right?
Right. Right.
And I'm thinking, oh, that looks like a beautiful couch and all this stuff. I can't tell by, the dimensions, how I sit, where my head would be, where my legs would be, where my knee comes, and all that stuff. So we figure go. And then when I went there, and then I noticed the ones we were looking at. Obviously, if it's a real, there were nice display ones for the rooms that you entertain in, the big sectionals,
right?
But not high sectionals. The short sectionals are not electric because they're not recliners, and the people don't when they're entertaining. They don't if their big room is an entertainment sectional and they're for parties and stuff like that. You don't need recliners, right? You want functional, beautiful, utilitarian. People aren't going to really be sleeping on it. You don't want to make it that comfortable. You definitely don't want to make your couch look like a bed because we go, well, there's a bed there, That's why I think a lot of that goes into design. People say, well, don't make my couch look like a fucking bed because my buddy's going to sleep on it then, right? And I used to do that on my buddy's couches all the time because they started looking comfortable like that, You slept on couches, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, not only your own. You go to someone else's. I'll sleep on a couch.
Oh no, you get shit faced somewhere. You're sleeping on a couch.
Well, years ago, when you looked at a couch, it was like, yeah, I could sleep on that. It was not that comfortable. It was, they got the padding, you got the thing. It was nothing. I mean, I had girl, when I was in high school, and you're making out and stuff like that. You're dry humping the girl, and you're on the couch and all that stuff. And you're really not even working that well, right? But I'm saying I'm working well, and the couch isn't working out that well. And now the development of the couch is more like for comfort. I think it was games, video games, and stuff like that. People are going to sit there and they're going to be there for hours. So they had to make them ultra comfortable and all this stuff with lumbar support and all this stuff. So Abby and I go to Miami, and Abby knows in her head, she knows one place where there's 3 furniture showrooms, right? And another one. So there's actually 4 within a half mile of each other. And we're going going up, we're going to spend hours looking at it. And this is the way I'm doing. And normally I'm a pain in the balls to go shopping with. I am horrible to go shopping with. Okay? I'm a horrible partner, Joe. I'm telling you that now.
Okay.
Yeah, and we go and we start looking at them, and I noticed the electric thing, and I said, wow. And on all the ones I liked had the electric. 1 or 2 of them had manual, and I'll go on my observation about the manual. So I'm seeing it, and I go, "Oh shit, man! You got to plug in your sofa." Which I know when they had the massage chairs and stuff like that, that was like 15, 16 years ago, or no, actually 20 something years ago. The massage chairs,
Right. Yeah.
and I'm thinking, "Wow, things have changed." And then I realize it makes sense and stuff like that. So we go and we start taking pictures of it. We're taking pictures of the spec sheet with the prices on it, and they'll say powered sofa, that's the price. Or if they say something sofa, $200 for electric or power, right? Or 400.
Okay.
So it was anywhere from 100 to 400, and I had my feeling on that too. And then every so often you see one with a handle on it, right? Now the handle on the old recliners used to be a very sturdy wood, or I imagine plastic now, but handle where you kind of go back and you know it's an easy movement to do, right?
What are they now?
They're real kind of like flimsy plastic ones.
Oh, that sucks. How's that going to last?
Recessed ones and it kind of just release the reclining mode. Right?
Oh, it's almost like a car latch for a car door.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's more like a latch,
yeah.
But it's flimsier, lighter. It's not sturdy. It's like they made that area the way I know about manufacturing from working in manufacturing, right? And it makes sense that you would probably make a standard model where it would be either electric or manual, and you just have the room for that stuff, right? Same size. You don't make the guts, so you have to make two different designs. So one you could put a motor in, or one you don't, right? That's it. And then you could fit the flimsy little latch thing and stuff like that. So as we're looking, I'll just tell you the process. We're going in, we're sitting on, we're deciding on the ones we like and all that stuff. So the first store we went, we picked like 4 or 5. We took pictures of them and their lead, right? And then we go next door to the next one, where we could have really walked, but I want to walk over and then walk back because people are like, oh, that's kind of crass. But we could have, it turned out we didn't have to even go on a highway because you can go on a back road, which made me think, wow. I mean, it wasn't even a road. It was where the cargo comes in. And it connects the stores practically. So we go into this store, and it's a bigger store, and we're checking it out. And we ended up seeing 3 of them we kind of liked. And the salesman was slightly handicapped. And I was going to really wanted just to give it to him because he seemed like a nice guy and stuff. And I'll go into my theory on, I was a salesperson too, so I'm real empathetic with non-pushy salespeople. If you're not an asshole, I'm really on your side and not want to make it difficult and all that stuff. And I did a little research and I realized if you're buying it from a place where you're buying, the research I did do was because I knew I was going shopping, was about price negotiations for furniture since I didn't do it. Now, if I was buying separate items, was it from a store buy separately, you can negotiate a price more. But if it's sold in a combination, like sets, like room to go, they have less.
Right.
They have less wiggle room when they sell it separately, right?
Well, yeah, because they've already put that thing together. Corporate has made their decision. This is the price.
Yeah.
So they, that the price mark is X, and the salesman, they don't give them wiggle room.
Yeah. So we're looking at it and stuff like that, and I felt bad because but we ended up going by, and we go back to the first place, and we liked the one we liked the least was as good as the one we liked the best in the older place. So we said we're just going to stick at the first one because we eliminated the other 2 stores.
Okay.
And now we're ranking them, and we're talking to the saleswoman, real sweet woman. She wasn't too pushy, just was on top. She said, "My name's so and so. This is where I am." She goes, "I like you like this," and she pointed this out and pointed it around, and it was good. And she knew because the showroom was on one floor. It was a pretty big showroom. Now, I don't want to say anything because I want if there's an opportunity, if we ever get a real big bump in the thing, maybe I can get furniture free in the future, but or a deeply discount.
Yeah.
So we're looking, and we started ranking them. Oh, but at the last place, I asked the guy, I go like this, I'm getting used to the electric. I see so many. I said, we're going to have to go with electric. I'm not going to get a manual with that. And then I go, what happens? I go, I wanted to ask him, with an electric, when the power goes out or the motor goes, can you open and close it manually? And the guy says no. Now, whether that's true or not, I appreciated it from the guy because he answered it with his candor, right? It actually that hurts his sales because everything was a couple $100 more if you can actually in his store you couldn't even find a manual one unless it was there wasn't a manual option. They just priced that in, right? But at the original store it was either $100 to $400 more for electric.
Yeah, well,
and it seems like an option. It seems like cars. That's what cars used to do. Add options. So
right.
Hey, listen, it's a profit. It's a how much? It's a $80 or what it costs $50 mechanism, right? But we can charge from $100 to $400, right?
Right. Man,
and that's what they did. $400. Yeah. $400. If it was $400, that means the headrest guy. So we picked the one we picked, and we posted it with the show. Has the headrest that adjusts, and the lumbar, and it opens up, and it does the lower back comes out if you want it, and things like that. And I thought, and they put in automatically. They said you want the warranty,
Yeah.
and it's another. $100 and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so it ends up being another $400, $500, and because a sofa. When someone says getting warranty on a sofa, I said warranty on a sofa. What do you mean? Either it's a sofa or not a sofa, and whatever you do to the sofa that makes it want you to fix it probably wouldn't be covered by warranty. Right? Like
well, if you have electric, you definitely want the warranty if you have the electric, because if that goes out, you want them to come fix it.
Yeah. I hear they don't do. They would send someone to the Keys. That's the thing. Luckily, we're in Key Largo, so it's
they do. Most of those places, it's 1 or 2 days of the month they'll send someone down.
Yeah. Well, which is fine. So I'm thinking in my head, we're getting 2 chairs. We're getting one standalone chair. We're getting the sofa. And I said to Abby, even one chair is not going to be on an area rug. So I said, we don't want a cord coming out there, right?
Right.
So why don't we get that one manual? Since actually, first of all, that's one's used the least, right? So what's the big deal about manual? It's not like someone's going to come over and kick back and pull the chair back. The only time I use a recliner here is if I'm meditating in the room and Abby's doing stuff in the bedroom. So that was our thing. We ended up in about 3 hours doing the whole thing and picking out a couch. Right?
Yeah. I got to tell you, as we're talking.
What?
I said, as we're talking, I'm sitting on one of the 2 couches we have that I've electronically, reclined and adjusted the lumbar while we're talking.
Yeah.
I have one of those couches. In fact, we have 2 of them. And everything you said about your experience, me and Damon absolutely went through. One, it took about 3, 4, 5 hours to go through all the different types, qualities of finish, material. We ended up with adjustable headrests, a heavier leather, but still soft enough not to be obnoxious. And we opted for the electric because the manual ones seemed cheap. I mean, that was what it came down to. I didn't trust the latches. So, yeah, I mean, that's what you're stuck with today. It's like buying a car.
Yeah. Well, the manual one still had that sturdy handle on it. The manual
Right.
chair.
No.
It was
Right.
one standalone. It didn't even come as electric option. And it was a similar color. And I said, oh, this would be an accent chair, right? Right? We got medium, cross between medium, light gray, and this is a little lighter gray, so closer to light gray. But so the chair that has a manual. So we got all that, and I'll tell you, when dealing with salespeople, I am able to negotiate. I do it as sale. I can do it as a sale. I can do it as this. But I got to know the wiggle room first, right? Like if you give me the thing, like the car, if I know if there's a deal with the car, like when you're negotiating a lease, you're actually negotiating the whatever the value is at the end, right? The depreciation.
Right, of course, yes.
That's what you're negotiating. And, whatever the startup price is this. And if they go with the standard price and own profit and stuff like that, I said at least they're making money through finance. Because you're financing the depreciation. So if you got the car at the lowest price you can start out with a lease, you can get the starting price lower. It makes everything else, it makes either the payments lower or the buyback higher, which reduces the amount of depreciation. So either or. But you can't really negotiate the depreciation because the depreciation is what it is. So
right,
and it's depreciation from the cost, not from what they sell it at. Because the car, they could sell it at $35,000, but the car's only new. They could say, "Oh, it's a $32,000 car," because the $3,000 is profit. Now I know that. I'll know. I can know that, or I can get that information. So
right, but you can't do that
part.
on furniture.
But the other intangibles, when someone tries to put you in something you don't want, and all this shit, I'm like, that shuts me down. I go, well, come on. If I can't afford that, can't get that, I'll just stick with what I have. I don't want to go and make an effort to get something I don't want. I'll just be, medium pleased with what I'm working with now, instead of being unpleased and with something new. They don't understand that's an option. They think people just want new. You can't get this one, but I can get you this one, right? So, I don't want. I stick with the old one then. I can do that, and that's how you separate that. And you tell them ahead. Say, I don't need to get one. I don't have to get a new one. But if I were to get a new one, I want this one at this price. So.
Right, that gives you that gives you a little leverage over the salesman because.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm not trying to argue. I'm not trying to argue with him or anything. I just want a good faith negotiation.
Oh, good luck.
Well, no, I get it. I get it sometimes. I really do. You get the right people.
Yeah,
it's not all the same. And I feel
actually,
if someone's there for what,
Oh no! I mean, of all the cars I bought, the last one, the truck that I own, was probably the first experience where I sat down with the salesman and it was like talking to an old friend, and they understood and they were willing to. It was just a positive, lovely experience. I had to go to Englewood, Florida, to get this done. By the way, I bought quite a few cars in South Florida, and it's always that proverbial car salesman. And man, nothing turns me off more than that shake and howdy, and then the guy or the gal immediately starts telling me what I need. And so what happens is we have a heart-to-heart where I explain what I need, and what I don't need is a salesman telling me what I need. And I usually piss people off, but the ones that stick to it, you either come back down to earth and deal with me as a human, or I'm just going to leave, because it's not a need to, it's a get to. And I don't need a new vehicle or a new used vehicle. if I could keep the old one. I'm
Wait,
the same as you.
Yeah, yeah. So what happens with these guys? I ask if someone's really crass and overpowering and off-putting and not really listening, right? As a salesperson should. I go, how long have you been here? Oh, I've been here, so I'm a manager and all that stuff. And I figure, well, if they're that bad, I said that's the management has decided this kind of person is ideal for them, and you're going to get that in service. You're going to get that every place in finance. And now, if you got someone you're talking to and they're a sweetheart, or they've been there 15 years, and they seem to have carry weight in a place, and they don't have to be managed by their manager, and they go, well, this place values someone. It's a straight shooter, you know. And I could tell right away, you know. They can tell you. You can tell right away. It's not a hidden thing. If you've been on this earth, you know if they've been that way. So, but
right.
People get on edge when you talk about sales. So why don't we just end it at that? And what I wanted to there's this. I think I wanted to talk about reaction videos, but I think we'll stick with TV. The things you don't. I thought when I saw reaction videos, right? There was a guy at the Catch who comes in and sets up his laptop, and you've seen him before. He's a nice guy, and he does coding, and then he does a bunch of other things, and he watches videos. And he watches this woman watching a football game. It's a woman, you see her, and she's watching. Nothing untoward's happening. She's not saying anything provocative or anything like that. She's just watching it, and you see the football game playing in the corner, and she's saying stuff, reacting to it, and they go, what's the point of this? And he goes, oh, you just watch their reactions. And I go, what? And I thought, wow. And then I did a little research later today. I did research. I've been looking into it, other reaction videos. And I think we maybe talk about it on another show so you can get the feel for it. You know, the psychology behind it. Why would someone be interested in seeing someone else's reaction? But then I thought,
right,
are things really that different? Because I'll go and compare a reaction video to other things later on, not today. But I thought, because since the lockdown, you've been busy, I know, and Damon and stuff like that. But when they closed everything down, right? Damon was home, right?
Yeah, no, it was kind of. What are you suggesting? I mean,
you were doing a lot of. You were watching a lot of streaming video.
Oh yeah, like, no. Well, I was either reading a lot, or you get a lot more watching of television and videos. Sure.
No, but
sure.
I mean, there were things. I mean, I'll tell you things I came acquainted with. I got acquainted with like foreign comedies, which you always, BBC, you always get stuff like that. But there was a show called Lillehammer, and that's from Norway. It's a Norwegian show, but the star of it is Steve Van Sant, the guy that played
really?
Silvio. He was Silvio on Sopranos, but he's
right.
He was in Bruce Springsteen, who played with Bruce Springsteen in the E Street Band. So in Lillehammer, he's a guy who's in witness protection program, and he goes to Norway, right? And he goes to Norway because he liked the Winter Olympics he saw there, and he thought that would be nice, right? And then there was another one called Derry Girls, and it's about a bunch of Irish Catholic school girls in Northern Ireland with kind of like the troubles in the background, the partisan troubles with the Ulstermen and the Catholics and the Provos or whatever, stuff like that. That's going on in the background. And I said, oh, it's kind of weird. And then you got some, like the Tiger King.
Oh, yeah, that whole thing.
Death Metal Panda.
Death Metal Panda?
Yeah, and there was, Contero, the sweet tooth salesman. Okay, listen to this one. This is a Japanese comedy, kind of weird. The guy's a book salesman, salesperson, right? But he has this fetish for desserts, and he's always playing hooky to get desserts, right?
Man.
Yeah, I know. And I think, wow, they're running out of, everything's derivative.
Yeah,
Everything's derivative.
You know,
but then
my
they kind of
reaction.
run out of ideas.
Well, that's the whole point of my reaction, is saying, man, it's just like I missed the mark. Instead of writing a book, I should have wrote some stupid screenplay and sold it for a
when they pitch it
miniseries.
and go like this, but that's been going on for a long time, though. Oh, there was a special. They had a special 3 years ago called Michael Bolton's Big Sexy Valentine's Day Special.
Oh, God.
Now, I thought that's hilarious. I'm laughing my ass off. Netflix had it, right? They had that shit in the 70s on TV. Come on. I'm not even. I wrote it down, but I bet you can say some of these shows. Some of the weird shows we grew up with. Weird.
No, there's a lot of them.
Just by title.
Okay, Get Smart.
Get Smart. Okay, how about My Mother the Car? My Mother the
Yes.
Car. The guy's
That
dead
was even.
the guy, a lawyer. I think it was 3 seasons, maybe. A lawyer buys a car, and his dead mother's voice comes over the radio. And there's actually an episode where she gets drunk on antifreeze. Yep. The Flying Nun. The Flying Nun, right? And
Yes.
you know
That was weird.
You know, she's a novice nun, right? Sally Fields, her first,
Right.
maybe, I mean, she could have had I think she had other jobs before. She was probably in one of the Beach Blanket movies or something. But no, she was actually right after the Beach Blanket, because she was like really right out of her teenage years for Flying Nuns, right? And she's a novice nun in Puerto Rico, right? And, which is kind of weird, because they had a Latin man. She had kind of a somewhat kind of sugar daddy feel to it.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And he was charming. He was kind of, he wasn't Ricardo Montalban, but he was similar and real charming guy. And I'm not saying he was swarmy and stuff like that. He was, but she could fly because she had this kind of habit that had aerodynamic qualities, which was stupid as hell, because it was attached to her head. And if that was the part that did it, she would be standing straight. You know what I mean? And it wasn't like if you were, I'm not an engineer, I'm looking at those wings on that habit aren't big enough to, and I don't get to build a show around that. Think of it, just because when the wind blows, she can fly because of her hat.
Yeah, well, but
right?
Goofy shows. I mean, you're right. There was a bunch of really, the premise of some of the shows that we were watching were so silly. Like for instance, Gilligan's Island, and for years they never get rescued.
That's not even the weirdest ones. That's not, that really, if you think about it, and you think they get over it, you think that's from the 60s and 70s. In the 90s, they did Cop Rock, which was a musical cop show. You know that?
No, I don't doubt it, but I never saw it.
Some of the songs were like, he's guilty, and another song was I'm not a racist. I'm not a racist. 11 episodes.
Well, hell, they ought to be playing that one again.
Yep.
That
was
go
in the
over
90s.
really well.
Bosom buddies. Think of the premise
Oh,
there.
bosom.
You're pitching. Okay. Now, Tom Hanks, this was the vehicle that got him to be a star. There are
Right.
two guys arrived in New York. Don't realize how expensive it is to live in New York City. Manhattan, right?
Right.
They find out from somebody that there's a low-priced kind of dormitory for people, but you got to be a woman. So they do a Some Like It Hot thing, and they dress up like women and go in there and pretend to be two girls from Canada, right? And I guess to Canada because they're deep voices. Not the Canadians have deep voices, but that was their explanation. They were from Saskatchewan or something like that, right?
Right.
But there was a Korean show called Oh My Ghost. Oh My Ghost. And the main character becomes possessed by a virgin, a woman who's a virgin. And in order to get rid of her, he has to what's he has to do? He has to get her laid. Now the worst one never made it. The worst one. This is where the extreme. And they must have got this idea. They were trying to make fun of Hogan's Heroes and stuff. They figure there were some World War II comedies where they took people like there was McHale's Navy, and I remember there were some people really angry that they had the Japanese guy as the houseboy on the PT
right.
boat.
Yeah.
And then Hogan's Heroes, they were disrespectful to the POWs. Okay, now this is the best one. The best one. It was BBC. It was called Heil, Honey, I'm Home. Heil. Okay, what do you think? You know what it is? It's 1938 England, and Hitler and Eva Braun live in a house, and their next door neighbors are a Jewish couple that just pop on in every time. But they wrote scripts like where Neville Chamberlain came over. It's 1938, and they're supposed to have the agreement, peace in our time. You know what I mean? That remember when they engraved that thing, and the next door neighbor, I forget the name of it because they had the scripts right now. The next door neighbor comes over and tries to hook up Chamberlain with her niece, right? And I'm just thinking, Heil, honey, I'm home. And it was Britain. It was in BBC. I mean, they got it.
Yeah, but
they got it pretty bad. The only other one that you think France probably wouldn't do something like that. They wouldn't.
Yeah, but British humor. I think back to Monty Python. Some of the things Monty Python would get away with were pretty out there. So, honey, I'm home.
But they didn't base Monty Python wasn't based on the whole thing. Like they could do that, and they made a movie. They made a movie, Jojo Rabbit, this past year. Did you hear about it?
No.
Jojo Rabbit is about a little boy who's in the Hitler Youth, right? And the chick that's in all those singing movies, those a cappella group movies, Rebel Wilson, the big British girl. You know what I'm talking about? The blonde. She's really funny.
Yes.
She was.
She's a lawyer.
And Sam, he just got an Academy Award too. He won Academy Award for 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri, or something like that. Sam Rockwell. He's in it, and Scarlett Johansson. She plays the little boy's mother. And the little boy has an imaginary friend who's Hitler. And Hitler is real supportive. He's real supportive, but in the end, he's a real nasty bastard. But they're like being real charming and cute and stuff like that. And
right.
I mean, you had to really square a hard circle to make that movie the way it was, and it works. It works in the end. Actually, they got everything right. They tied it up in the end. I mean, there's a Jewish girl hiding in the attic, in the thing. I'm not going to give it away because you got to see the movie. It's great. And what I'm saying, and I said they squared the circle at the end.
Yeah, that's
So
one I'm going to have. I did see the preview to that movie, and it did interest me just because it seemed so. Uh, uh, the characters were so. How do you say?
likable
Like
or
comic book almost.
non-offensive, non-offensive, right? But it's a comedy. In the beginning, it's a comedy. It's kind of funny, believe it or not. And then, and I know there's going to be people out there, and the Holocaust wasn't funny and stuff like that. But it addresses it actually addresses the issues at the end and stuff like that. It addresses the anti-Semitism, uh, the Nazis, and all that stuff. So it was pretty good, I have to say. So
Good. I'll have to watch it.
yeah, Jojo Rabbit, and I was just thinking, oh yeah. So now I'm thinking maybe things aren't that weird. You know, we always think like I told you to want to Oh My Ghost, you know, the Korean show, and that's a
Right.
rough translation. I mean, we're the ones that had My Mother the Car and The Flying Nun, Car 54, Where Are You? All these, I mean, the Addams Family, the Munsters. You know, if you think about it, and Archie Bunker was a bigoted man, right?
Oh yeah, that was. But that Norman Lear wrote that to be,
Yeah,
in your face to the American public. He had there, and I'm sure all of these are the same.
yeah,
There is that subliminal. There is that second message that gets out.
yeah. No,
it's
and
trying
Norman
to
Lear
tell
did
you
do it.
something.
It did get through because at the end, you'd see there was always Archie was kind of like the antagonist, but he was also he was
Right.
the everyman. He was the everyman, and he had to be kind of like he was always going far right, far right, far right, and it was Brian. He's always being dragged to the middle by the end of the show. He's like, well, you know, that's the way it's going to be, you know, like that at the end. He didn't
Right.
say it like that, but he did that. And even the song in the beginning, and Edith was an innocent who was fair. She was fair, you know, even though he called her a dingbat because she didn't really see the problem with that, you know, problem with having a
Right.
black neighbor or problem having a gay friend or anything like that. She didn't have a problem. She just didn't understand why there was a big deal about it. But all these shows you see that come out, so what made me think about the weird is that I'm watching a show and it was really kind of interesting. It was a comedy, and it's Aziz Ansari. You ever hear? He's an Indian American of Asian Indian descent, right?
No.
Well, it's a comedy, and it's not an Asian Indian comedy, right? He's just an American that happens to be Asian and Indian. And it
Okay.
addresses all those issues and does all this thing. I said, this is good. This is like Seinfeld, but they talk about something, you know? The whole show talks about something. And it's a comedy, right? And they're always talking about, and it's the main thing. The main thing, there's actually a main idea in it. It could be about relationship. It could be about birth control. It could be about racism. It could be about sexism. Something like that. And it's not tangentially about it, it's the whole thing. And they said, oh, this is original. And then they did an episode where it's called A Single Shot. And then I realized I saw this in True Detective. I saw this in Game of Thrones. And I realized, what isn't derivative? And there's so much content out there. What hasn't been done?
Yeah, it makes you wonder where does one find the new material?
Is there new material? Is there anything new in the sun? I mean, Shakespeare used to say, "There's nothing." There's a saying Shakespeare says something about between God and man, and there's nothing new in the world, really.
Well, even Mark
Like
Twain says
everything-
history doesn't
in life,
repeat; it
li-
just continues
life-
to rhyme.
Yeah, no, but life has happened, so there's really nothing. Everything, life is derivative. Or everything's derivative of life. It has happened. It's proverbial monkeys, 1,000 monkeys sitting at a computer keyboard, I guess you could say now, not a typewriter, writing, Shakespeare by accident, you know.
Yeah.
for just going hitting the keyboard. And is it worthwhile just coming up with something new? And do you have to footnote everything?
Yeah, I don't know. It comes down to like what will sell. You you can write something totally silly, and because we see it on TV and we've seen it throughout our lives, completely, totally silly, no real, you know, cultural value. It's just silliness.
Well,
Um,
they'll call
and,
it when they say something like
and
that. They'll call it
sometimes
entertainment. This is entertainment. It's to
no, no, no,
take
no,
people.
and I'm not banging on it. I'm not banging on
Yeah.
it. I mean, silly like Carol Burnett Variety Hour
Yeah.
has a purpose to make you laugh. Sometimes you just need to see silly,
Yeah.
but how many different ways of silly? How many different ways of slapstick are there? I mean, it's situational, but like anything else, I guess maybe as generations move on, you can do types of what has been done before. You can do like a spin-off of a particular themed show, and maybe that will work because maybe that's new enough to get people to have interest. But I'm talking like, what have you seen that's like breaking, different, new?
Well, that's where I come in with the reaction videos, right?
You sure it's just not voyeurism?
Well, if you think about it, it's being a shared experience. Like I like Led Zeppelin, right?
Okay.
Um, the Immigrant Song. That's the title of a song. It's called The Immigrant Song. And they used it in a Thor movie. But there's an African American dude watching them play this song. And he's listening to it. And he's never really heard it, never seen him in concert. He's watching it. In the end, he's like in his 20s, mid 20s, and he's looking at it and he goes, these guys are like from another planet in a good way, right?
Right.
Or someone watching an old U2 and stuff like that. And for me, it's watching a young African American person discover that. And imagine it could work very well with an older like person like me, an older white person, listening to a rap, new rap singer, like The Weeknd. You ever hear of Weeknd? He's not a rapper. Weeknd, he's a vocalist. Weeknd's a vocalist, a musician.
Vocalist. Well, this may actually answer our previous question as to, new shows and takeoffs on old shows. You just may have, you rediscover something, you think it's new, you've never heard it before.
Yeah.
So maybe it's generational. Maybe this is just kind of repeats and rolls along generationally.
Yeah. How many times did they remake Shakespeare, like Romeo and Juliet? You had, you had Romeo and Juliet, and then, I mean, I'm sure they probably did one in the 40s and 30s that would kind of typecast it like that, where someone wrote a movie like that. But the real big one was in the 60s or the late 50s, early 60s, West Side Story.
Yes.
West Side Story. And then there was tons of other movies like that. Wealthy families where, it was kind of, the West Side Story became for the working class Romeo and Juliet. The Montagues and the Capulets were wealthy,
right.
Were wealthy merchants.
Yes, they were.
Yeah. So, I mean, Shakespeare was actually, when he was writing for the monarchy and things like that. A lot of things he wrote was there for the glorification of the monarchy. Henry V, Henry V was a descent. Were they they were the ancestors, Henry V, sixth or whatever. There was a sixth and a seventh. They're not very famous, but Henry VIII was Elizabeth's father. But Elizabeth was the monarch at the time. Shakespeare was doing most of his stuff, right? And so right now, and they're suggesting that what he wrote was derived from other people. Ben Jonson was a compatriot. So there's does everything have to? I mean, I think we're maybe struggling too hard to tell a original story, but not tell a good story. Maybe they should concentrate on telling a really good story.
Well, where you find that more, I believe, is in books. It's in the written publications. You find, I believe, more original stories, and sometimes those original stories are nonfiction, things that you just haven't heard of. I've read quite a bit between the Civil Rights Movement and World War II, aspects or personalities involved that were not on the forefront, but did some amazing things. And when you read these, like I said, this is nonfiction.
Uh-huh.
And it brings a whole different story that you've never heard before to the forefront. So it's there, but I think do
you think people just can't handle?
I find that more in books.
People can't really handle, like they can't handle. They got us inspired by true events. I mean, why can't they just say, "Listen, this is the story." At least that's what the person says the story is. The person that was involved in it. And if they say inspired by a story, why would they have to change it? I think the movie Lincoln was almost directly based on what's her name? Something Kennedy. She's a famous historian. She writes, and a woman. And she wrote this book called Team of Rivals. And Lincoln was based on the passing of the 13th Amendment. The free the slaves. From then on, it would free the slaves. Because the Emancipation Proclamation only did that for the states that were at war with the Union. But this was for when the Union was over, there was going to be no, slavery was going to be outlawed. There was, that's what they're going to do. And that what they did is they focused on that particular event, right? Of the passing, how he cajoled people and got them to pass that through a partisan Congress. And supposedly it's based on, obviously, some of the conversations he had with Mary Todd Lincoln. And Lincoln had how could they know if that was true, I mean, they have to base it on other conversations they had, but they try to base it on that and be truthful. And they made her as difficult, they made Mrs. Lincoln as difficult as supposedly she was, right? And abrasive.
Yeah.
And they made Lincoln the storyteller that he was. And always trying to distract people when, he had to think. So actually, I love stuff like that. And you're right, that the true story is many times more amazing than the one, you see on television that tells it, or television on the big screen.
Yeah, because here's the factors that come in. Factors that come in with a book is the author has a book. He gets it published one way or the other.
Yeah.
So the book, okay, it ends up being published. But when you're trying to sell a screenplay, it immediately is looked at in sellability. I mean, books are too, but now with self-publishing and the hybrid self-publishing, you can get, and Amazon, of course, anyone can get a book out.
Well,
so the material that's there is amazing. But when you start selling screenplays, I mean, they have to optimize on the profitability of it. So
screenplays are structurally different from novels are rarely written with a movie in mind, but some are. Some are. Mario Puzo kind of did that with The Godfather and stuff like that. They said that that was very akin to a screenplay, but the you have your rewrites and things like that. But in the end, it is the screenplay, and that's where you get things like Sixth Sense. M. Night's hit the one movie that he get always get with the end of that movie, The Sixth Sense, has the best twist of any movie. You would the first time you see that, you have no idea. And the only reason I'm not saying what it is, even though 98% of the people who listen to this podcast know the ending of that movie, for the 2%, because it's such a good movie. To this day, I won't say that. And there's a show on A&E called, or is it A&E? Is it another channel, Comedy Central? I'm not sure, but it's called Portlandia. It's Fred Armisen, and it was spoiler alert. They kept on talking spoiler alert and kept on saying the ending of the movie. You got to be really. The only thing, if you said something like this, well, if you're watching a movie and it's the Christ is getting crucified, and you say, oh, the game's on, and say, don't worry, he's going to come back 3 days later, and people they'll look at you and like, well, how the fuck don't you know that? How do you not know that one?
Exactly.
Unless there's some alien in a cloaked spaceship, invisible spaceship out there, going through the files and going like this and going, oh, wait a second, we got to see this history and stuff like that. Oh, this is one of their main religious characters. And someone says, oh, and you see another alien walking in. That would be a good bit, wouldn't it? Another alien walking in and saying to the guy, he says, oh, he arises 3 days later. They come in the cave and all that stuff. And the alien would look at him and says, what are you, an asshole? I mean, I've been watching this. I've been studying this stuff, and I just want to get the story. Or they could blow the Sixth Sense. It would have to be an alien. Or someone that woke up from a 30-year coma. That'd be a good story, too. Going to work up there and they're just catching up and they're going in. I got all this new stuff, but there's premises. There was a movie out last year called Yesterday, and it was this guy in Britain. He's a solo artist, right? Contemporary solo artist. He plays small gigs and he's barely making his rent. And he wakes up one day and he plays a Beatles song for his friend, right? And the friend goes, oh, that's a nice song. What do you call that one? And he goes, that's Yesterday by the Beatles. By the Who? And he doesn't think anything of it. And then he goes around, and I'm not giving away the movie because that's the crux of the movie. No one's heard this. One day he wakes up, no one's heard of the Beatles or any of their music. So he starts cranking out Beatles music, right?
As his own.
But there's no Beatles, right? So he's really in his head. He's not stealing it, and there's some glitches. And actually, pretty interesting concept. Just the concept of it. Well, it was a decent. I thought it was a decent movie. I'd give it a B, maybe B plus. So I mean, there was a dilemma in it for the guy, but. I would, I appreciated that when someone comes up with something that's kind of, the time travel ones are the new ones too. Time travel, where someone does something, they have to figure out paradoxes.
Time travel could always be fun. I mean, of course, that's always, you can write the future however you want, or you can interface someone from the future back into the past. Those were always fun. I always liked those.
I saw one over 20 years ago, and it really affected me. It was the remake of The Twilight Zone, or it was one of those. It was a Steven Spielberg one, Amazing Stories, maybe, right? And it was 30 years ago, maybe. And it's it's in the future, and this history professor, they invent time travel, and his history professor is sent back. He's a descendant of Kennedy, right? John F. Kennedy.
Okay.
And he's sent back to record some events surrounding, not to interfere with anything, right? Not to interfere. And what happens is he gets himself involved with the Kennedy, like the Secret Service and stuff like that, and he tells them what's going to happen. And he says, but I'm not allowed to interfere. And he goes, and there's nothing we could do. And in the end, he changes places with Kennedy, and Kennedy goes back. And he's teaching at the Kennedy School of Government in Harvard like 200 years in the future.
That's a great premise.
And his ancestor sacrificed himself for Kennedy to live. Which, you know, I used to be a worshiper of Kennedy, and I don't know if I'd do that for Kennedy right now if I were him, because he wasn't that great a guy, you know. And here I am, a Democrat and stuff like that, saying that. So, but it was a brilliant concept, though. He says, "Oh well, how do you get around the paradox?" And he goes, "Well, it's at the moment of his death, so it doesn't matter if it's Kennedy or not. It doesn't affect. Kennedy's gone from the scene, right? And they cover it up and stuff.
Right.
Like Kennedy's is sequestered in the future, far in the future. So yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say. So once again, you know, I was thinking about that. The live shows, which I'm still going to do, because if we get a large enough audience, I figure eventually we'll have a couple people that are shut-ins in prison, maybe. Oh, I guess you can't make any phone calls if you're in prison. I imagine a prison, there's might be a prison population that we're doing a boarding school. We could have a boarding school audience. They would like that. I could talk about how to make fake, how to homemade alcohol. That would work for prison too. That would be the side thing for that. But I eventually could see a live audience, but I don't think there's ever going to be a live audience, because first of all, why would someone listen to a podcast if they want to listen to live? Because the radio exists already.
Right. I mean, you would think they would just listen to the radio. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, radio works for when you want to flip it on. You hear some music. You got to sit through their. It's free. You got to sit through the commercials. But everyone turns. Have you ever listened to the commercials on the radio?
No, I try not to.
I mean, do people listen to them on podcasts? You got to be careful on this stuff like that. I just don't get it. I mean, it's going to be like the 1950s or something like that, or 1930s and 40s, where they incorporate the product right into the show. You know, little Orphan Annie, Ovaltine, right? Be sure to drink your Ovaltine, right? That magic decoder ring shit. So I don't know way about it, but I still would like to get phone calls in. I know there's people that do call-in shows, and they got to organize it. And the thing with podcasts, people don't show up as much, and they don't do it for radio shows either as much. You know that? I've been on 4 radio shows, and some people don't show up. You know? Now, if it's a big show like NPR, National Public Radio, or, you know, a national show, people have to show up, or they say, well, if you don't show up, we're going to stop playing your music, or you can't promote your book, you know?
Right.
So,
I mean, let's face it. If you go onto a venue that's got thousands listening, you're going to get phone calls in. You're just going to have people call.
Well, we do have thousands. We do have thousands listening, but they're listening after the fact. They're listening after the fact of the podcast.
I like it. Right.
We need a time machine to go, like, listen, did you want to ask a question about that show? So I'm putting in a postscript right now. What I did is I put the phone number, just in case, which you should write it down if you're listening now. And if you're not, you too, Joe. 407-392-4563. That is the number that we're talking on right now. I guess I could put a Skype one on. I got to put my Skype identification. So if we, I mean, it'd be great if we had someone from another country call, especially from like Iran or Serbia or Kazakhstan or something crazy like that. That would be awesome. Um, yeah, and you can say whatever crazy shit you want to say. And I don't say you don't naturally have crazy shit to say. You may have something that's very cogent and thoughtful, and uh, but please do. But that number is 407-392-4563. And also, if you have any questions after the fact, I can bring them up on the next show. And all you have to do is send an email for me or Joe um, to Jim. And you know how to spell Jim. If you don't know how to spell Jim, I'm not going to spell it for you. At keysbartender.com. So you know I'm not going to spell a Keys Bartender because you know what that is. It's Keys Bartender, not Florida Keys Bartender. Keys Bartender is the email address. And I think I'm going to go back. I think I'm going to change that back to Keys Bartender. I'm going to change the title of the show to that. I don't know if that's going to affect the way people listen to it or something like that. But Florida Keys, I always thought that people knew, Joe, that when I said Keys Bartender, we meant the Florida Keys. Not about a bartender that has a lot of keys.
Yeah,
right?
Well, not everyone, I guess, if you got to, knows
if you're
what
in
the
if
Florida
you're in the
Keys
United
are.
States and you say you're going down to the Keys, unless you're right next
I mean,
to a key, like if there's a key, are there keys outside of Texas?
Jim, we have a president that can't say Yosemite.
Oh, it's Yosemite?
There are people that they don't know where the keys are.
Yosemite?
Yosemite. Yeah, Yosemite over there.
Yosemite
sounds
like a mineral, one of those extra minerals,
about.
the minerals that they have, those transitory elements on the periodic table that only appear for like a millionth of a second. You ever hear of those?
Yes, well, that must be one of them.
Yeah, one of the Yosemite. And it's a Nazi-like appearance where they disappear when you shine the lights on them and stuff like that. They're not a anti-Semite anymore. Anti-Semite. But
Yosemite.
Yosemite. So yeah, but if you have any questions or comments, and as long as you're not anti-Semitic and stuff, if you are, bring it to our attention, and then we can go and say a comfortable fuck you to you.
That's right.
Yep. Joe, thank you. Listen, you want to? We did almost an hour and a half. We want to do another one Thursday. You think about it?
Just.
How about 2:00?
Think about it. 2:00 is fine. I don't care. Just the routine. Just give me a holler ahead of time, and we're good.
Well, tomorrow I'm working, so I'll send it to you tomorrow afternoon. Okay.
Tomorrow afternoon. That'll be perfect.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. So we'll do it at 2:00 on Thursday, and if you want to call in, and that's Thursday. What's today's date? The 14th, 15th. So that would be the 17th. So I'm gonna probably do a 30-minute show tomorrow by myself. But if you're listening to the show, if you download it, it'll be September 17th, Thursday, September 17th, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right? Because we got another month before we go to daylight savings, right? Or was that November? Are we still doing that? Are we getting rid of that?
No, I think that's October.
October, okay.
It's before Halloween. I think it's in October.
Yeah. And next week I might want to do a couple extra shows, so maybe we'll do 2 shows. We could have done 2 shows right now. I would have just stopped but it doesn't really matter the number of shows. We got 326 episodes. So this is just good for like if you're driving from here to where could you go from there? This would take you almost down to Key West. If you're driving at this hour and 30 minutes.
Almost.
And
you'd be real close.
You'd have to stop and use the bathroom, go to a gas station, get yourself a Cuban sandwich. Because there's not a lot of places where you can just pull off the side and go behind a tree because it's a lot of bushes and stuff like that. So you really can't do that. You got to stop at a gas station. That's a helpful hint for the end of your show. Okay, Joe. Thank you. I'm going to start playing the music. Okay. Hey, follow
Go
us
for
on
it. Music.
Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Talk to you later. I'm not signing up. I'm not hanging up on you yet, Joe. So the music's starting in 3, 2, 1. So if I turn it up real loud now, Joe, you don't hear it.
No,
Hear that?
no, not at all.
No. Wait, if I put it here in my head, probably had feedback there. Was there feedback? No?
No,
Did you hear a little feedback when I did that? Okay, I'm going to turn down the music.
no, not at all.
Okay, wait, I'm going to turn this show off.